In 1934, the Daughters of the American Revolution bought 160 acres of land on the eastern side of Lake Champlain to preserve a tangible link to American history for future generations. Included in the purchase was the mansion belonging to former member of the Green Mountain Boys and Brigadier General John Strong. The DAR donated nearly 100 acres to the state of Vermont in 1949. Join me as I tent in Addison, Vermont, in campgrounds with the Yankee camper at the DAR State Park. Located along picturesque Route 17 in western Vermont, the DAR State Park Campground boasts access to the area along beautiful Lake Champlain as it narrows toward the southern end. This area hosts a number of significant places to visit pertaining to early American history on both sides of the lake, with a bridge joining New York. There's a variety of campsites to choose from, including wooded, which is what I chose, to open air with minimal trees if your priority is sunshine for solar or no obstructions for Starlink. Each site is equipped with a picnic table and fire ring or fireplace. While there's no specific size, the wooded sites seem large enough for a medium-sized camper. The field can certainly accommodate larger rigs, but if you've got a very big RV, I'd call first to verify which site may be best. The staff was very friendly and helpful. You should know that, like many state park campgrounds, this is dry camping only, meaning no hookups at any site, but generators are allowed during the non-quiet hours. There's a total of 47 tent or RV sites, plus an additional 24 lean-to sites. The prices are uniform across all of the Vermont state parks, with the exception of Burton Island. The cost is based on a maximum of 4 people per campsite. Additional people are $8 per person per night, and pets are $3 per pet per night. For Vermont residents, the cost is $20 per night, plus an additional $10 per night for a lean-to. Non-residents are $38 per night, plus an additional $11 for a lean-to site. Also note that advance registrations require an $8 non-refundable processing fee, a small price to pay if you want to book a specific site. Speaking of specific sites, Vermont has a $2 upcharge for prime sites, meaning those that are most desirable, although I didn't see any at the DAR campground that this applied to. The season is short, from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, but campsites can be booked as far out as 11 months in advance, up to the day prior to arrival. The maximum number of nights you can stay in any one campground is 14. I'll go into detail on the campground amenities in a moment, but first let me share the amazing historical places to visit in the region. Although Lake Champlain splits the states of Vermont and New York for nearly 100 miles, there's only a single location where you can cross the lake from one state to the other without paying a fee. That is the strategic jutty at Chimney and Crown Points. Here the gap is a mere 0.3 of a mile wide and is traversed by the Lake Champlain Bridge, originally built in 1929, then replaced in 2011. Today we simply hop into our automobiles and can travel by personal transport as far as 600 miles or more in a day. But back in colonial times, the highways were the rivers and lakes. To get from Montreal in Canada to New York meant a trip up the St. Lawrence River to the Atlantic Ocean, then southwest past New England. A trip of nearly 1,700 miles. Or you could travel by land, lake, and river, cutting out over 1,000 of those miles. Because this route made sense, it was important to keep it open for commerce and military transport by the controlling power and protect invaders from using it to attack. So forts were built at the most strategic locations. The narrow pinch point was a meeting place and crossway for Native Americans, but was first settled by the French in the early 18th century. After the British gained momentum up the lake, the soldiers under Louis XV blew up their fort on the west side and torched the buildings on the east side, so that when King George's men arrived, they found only ruins and chimneys. The British renamed the area on the west Crown Point, and on the east it became known as Chimney Point. While the victors proceeded to lay plans for a grand fort on the location in 1759 under General Amherst, much of the construction was overseen by Israel Putnam of Danvers, Massachusetts, who would later participate in the Battle of Bunker Hill, and to whom the quote, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes," is often attributed, although it could have been any number of officers, or perhaps none at all. When the French capitulated in 1763, the fort was nearly complete, but never saw action. It's been said that it was the most magnificent in North America. That was until the fire broke out in 1773, burning for 4 days and destroying all but the stone barracks and block walls. In 1774, the British saw no point in rebuilding and left a small crew of about 9 garrisoned at the remote outpost. In the following spring, while Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold were 13 miles south securing the capture of Fort Ticonderoga, another of the Green Mountain Boys, Seth Warner, led an armed contingent against the pitifully small group at Crown Point and captured around 110 cannon. These were eventually moved to Ticonderoga and later transported over the snow that winter by Henry Knox to Dorchester Heights outside of Boston, where General Washington forced the British soldiers to evacuate the city. Chimney and Crown Points became less significant in the hands of the Americans as they determined to fortify the high ground of Snake Hill directly across from Fort Ticonderoga. This would be renamed Mount Independence and is one of the best preserved sites of the American Revolution. You can walk these grounds and visit the remains of the once entrenched Continental Army until being overwhelmed by the troops under the command of General Burgoyne coming out of Canada. The Americans fled back towards New Hampshire along the road that had been established by Amherst in 1759 to supply the fort at Crown Point from Fort No. 4 in Claremont, New Hampshire. The British pursued until exhausted. American commander General St. Clair left Seth Warner in charge at Hubbardton, Vermont, to await the remainder of the rear guard and ordered them to catch up with the main body. Warner understood that the bedraggled men coming in needed rest, including New Hampshire Colonel Nathan Hale, but not that Nathan Hale. Warner set up a defense position and found his men under attack by 7 a.m. in the morning, in spite of having selected higher ground upon what is now Monument Hill. As was so true in the early part of the American Revolution, the British had a tactical victory, Warner having disobeyed orders and suffered serious losses. But the Americans successfully halted the pursuit of His Majesty's regulars and German mercenaries, and they begrudgingly returned to Burgoyne's main army. For the Americans, it was a strategic victory, as many of the soldiers, including Warner, were available for future conflicts. This was the only battle to ever take place in Vermont. Hold on, you say. What about the Battle of Bennington? We'll cover that in a later episode. For now, let's return to the amenities at the DAR State Park. But first, I don't receive any endorsements, but if you'd like to support my channel, you can buy me a cup of coffee. The link's right there on the screen, and I'll put a copy of it in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video. The park maintains 2 bathroom buildings with showers. These are centrally located within the 3 campground loops. The one closest to my campsite had 2 sinks and 3 stalls with flush toilets. They were always clean and stocked when I visited. It was, however, a distance from my campsite I had chosen near the lake, so I found myself planning my departure schedule to include a stop on the way out. The same was true of showering. I would bring my towel, shower bag, and a change of clothes, then stop before leaving for the day. This did require some pre-planning, as the showers are operated by tokens, which are available for 50 cents at the office. They did leave a couple of tokens out in the evening and requested payment the next day, which worked well. The shower area is narrow with a bench on one end and the stall with a clear door on the opposite. It's accessed in the center through a partition door with a slide lock. Located at the top is a hook for hanging a towel. Although there was only a single shower in the men's room, I never had to wait. But I suspect that this could present a problem if the park is near capacity. A single token gave 5 minutes of hot water, which was sufficient to get washed and rinsed off. This probably helps with quick turnover when it's busy. Also at the building was a dual basin dishwashing sink on the women's side. It was a good size with a rack area for clean dishes, but the sink had cold water only. Sitting a bit of a ways off was a freshwater faucet. Although centrally located to the 2 loops, it took me a few minutes to locate it, and vehicle access was prohibited, meaning that filling larger water storage jugs could require a wheeled cart. Firewood was available near the office at $6 for a generous bundle. Next to the firewood rack was a container of kindling wood, which was available for free. Near the firewood was a fish cleaning station with soap to accommodate those who had a good day out on the lake. Fishing is available from the shore of the park, and there's a small craft launch for canoes and other paddle craft. A boat launch for trailered watercraft is available at the Chimney Point Historic Site, under the bridge about a mile and a half away. Other water-related recreation includes swimming from the day-use area of the park. I did read that swimming shoes are recommended, since the shore is shale. The day-use area also provides a sheltered picnic area and restrooms. At the end of the short path from the camping area is a deck with seats overlooking the lake. Other recreation included a small play area for children, which seemed dated, plus a volleyball net and horseshoe pits. Horseshoes are available at the office for campers to borrow. Dumpsters are located near the entrance and includes the opportunity for recycling, as well as a bin for food scraps. Located across from the dumpsters is where RVs can get freshwater fill-up for their tanks, as well as the sanitation station to dump their gray and black water. There's a pull-off so as to prevent traffic from blocking either entering or exiting the campground. My opinion is that the amenities were sufficient, but this park functions better as a base for visiting what the area has to offer than a destination resort. Speaking of what the area has to offer, I was told by 2 separate people that the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum was a must-see. So, I went. Located about 20 minutes north of the state park, the museum is a mix of open-air exhibits and buildings. There's a number of specific exhibit areas, but I had come directly from spending the morning at Crown Point State Park and was most interested in the Revolutionary War building Key to Liberty, which features the Battle of Valcourt Bay. Situated around 35 miles north of Crown Point, Benedict Arnold and a small fleet of American vessels took on a better equipped and significantly larger British fleet in October of 1776. Although the ragtag Americans lost the battle, they succeeded in delaying their adversary long enough to force them to return to Canada for the winter. So, also a tactical victory. One of the American boats sunk was the Gundelow Philadelphia. In the 1930s, this gunboat was discovered on the lake bed of Champlain and raised. In 1961, it was transferred from Vermont to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and is said to be the oldest surviving ship in the U.S. Navy, although surviving is a loose term. In 1989, the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum set a goal to build a replica of the Philadelphia, and in 1991, the Philadelphia 2 was launched onto the lake. It served for about 15 years before being returned to land for a refit and was relaunched in 2007. Although not the actual ship, it did allow numbers of people to experience a sense of history. Tragedy struck in the winter of 2020 when the replica was found sunk off the pier of her winter berth. In February, she was recovered and sent back to the museum for a refit. In March of that year, America was forced to shut down due to the coronavirus, and progress on repairs came to a crawl. This tangible touchstone representing American history is still slated for a complete refit and can be visited in the center of the grounds. While I was there, I also saw a group of youth in a kayak building class where they were in the process of constructing their own personal watercraft. Likewise, I visited the shore where a number of longboats were docked that had been built by youth in the museum's boat building program, and then used for both youth and adult rowing classes. Other programs include sailing and water ecology. I have to agree that if you're in the area, the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum is a must-see. If you're still on the fence, you should know that the cost of admission is absolutely free. There are several other locations, however, that you should also consider if you're in the region. Although the hours are limited, Saturday and Sunday 11 to 3 during the summer, it's worth visiting the Daughters of the American Revolution Museum at the John Strong Mansion. You'll hear about the family and their ties to the area, as well as some history of DAR in Vermont. You'll also get to visit the bedroom of Marjorie Merriweather Post, the owner of Postum Cereal and later General Foods, who stayed at the DAR headquarters when in the area. It's interesting to note that the fancy brickwork is on the back of the building, as that was the side most people would see, since approaching from Lake Champlain was far more common than from the road. The museum at Chimney Point incorporates several eras through which the small patch of land was used, including indigenous people, the French during the 18th century, and the post-revolution period. There's also a bar or tap room representing what an early 19th century tavern looked like. Upstairs is a diorama of the Lake Champlain Bridge, as well as some work by local artists. Across from the gift shop is a representation of what the post office looked like in the early 20th century. Be sure to grab some souvenir stamps while behind the counter. The museum is open mid-May to Columbus Day, and admission is $6. Also, be sure to visit the Crown Point Lighthouse on the New York side of the lake. Built to honor Samuel de Champlain, who brought news of the water back to Europe, the stone edifice stands majestically above the western shore. Walking down to the dock offers a sweeping view of the Lake Champlain Bridge as pleasure craft cruise by. This is a popular place for local and visiting fishermen. While in the Empire State, indulge in the local fare known as a Michigan. I got mine at Susie's, a little roadside stand on the way to Fort Ticonderoga. It's a hot dog with a special tomato-based meat sauce with mustard and onions. I also ordered onion rings and a cream soda before heading back to His Majesty's Fort at Crown Point. If you enjoyed joining me while I visit this part of Lake Champlain and camping at the DAR State Park, take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. If you've not already subscribed, be sure to do so. It lets me know you like what I'm doing. If you have anything you'd like to share, please do so in the comments section. Until next time, get outside, and thank you for watching.